So, been about a week since the last update. Been quiet. Kind of get into why. Got a haircut. It's pretty cool. Back in Kyiv, it's been a really hectic. About not 20 hours, I guess. I'm catching a train here in the next 4 or so hours. So chances are this won't be updated till I hit Krakow, and I'm not going to have time to finish the video. About the trip to Petrykivka, so worked with Brave to Rebuild on a couple of the impact sites before we left. A lot of good people. Handful of guys kind of had their own vehicles and hopped in the buses and made us a little convoy. It was about 5-6 hours to Petrykivka. Nice little drive, honestly, through the countryside, and to be honest, it looked like you were cruising through the Midwest. It wasn't until we kind of got closer to the Dnipropetrovsk area, as we were getting closer to the front, where pretty clear, like most of the vehicles were like trucks and logistics and stuff like that. The traffic certainly changed. Petrykivka itself is a very pretty little town. Population of about I think pre-war population was like 4,500, something like that. Very pretty little main street. As far as damage is concerned, relatively unaffected little town from what I could tell. Dnipro city itself is far more common to be a target. While we were down there, handful of air alerts, nothing really our way, but I think Dnipro city went through, I think, about 2 solid days of pretty constant bombardment, to the point to where a couple different times we'd seen helicopter gunships flying about treetop level, buzzing town, and another time we've seen some fighter jets, again, like treetop level, just absolutely booking it, headed that direction. I'm assuming they're intercepting drones and whatnot, Shaheds. But all in all, Petrykivka was quiet. I guess before I get into the work, I mentioned the town is relatively unaffected structurally by the war, by appearances, but there are a couple of murals. I didn't count how many faces and names were on there, but in the 5 days we were there were 3 funerals. I know 2 of which were soldiers. Again, town of like 4,500 people. The amount of loss in that city is pretty wild. Being as close as that town is to the east, I get a pretty strong sense that all the men are kind of just doing their part. The town seemed largely to be just women and children, honestly. A lot of military personnel and trucks and stuff seem to be stopping in town and hanging out and visiting little shops and such. Various vehicles, drone cages, stuff like that. We started seeing that kind of thing. Petrykivka is about 150 kilometers, or about 90 miles, I think that comes out to about 90 miles. 90 miles from the front. And my understanding from one of the guys is where it becomes far more dangerous is when you're at about 50 to 60 kilometers from the front. So we're outside of that. Anyway, the orphanage, or the building itself, because it's not just children there, it's just the portion we were working on is specifically being refurbished for children. All the kids there are orphans displaced because of the war. That is how they make it to this place, is because they lost their families due to the conflict. There are some elderly people living up on the upper floors of the building. I think there was 5 floors that were also there because they're displaced and elderly and needing a place to stay. And so the state puts them up in a place like this, just a big dormitory. This particular renovation project is intended on restoring the 2nd floor of the building, which will be used specifically to house children. Our job there was to basically demolish all of the old floors. We busted out all the concrete off the floors, We took out walls, these tiny little bathrooms, knocked down brick walls and stuff like that to where they're going to make bigger bathrooms and things of that nature. Also removing, prepping the bathrooms by removing all the old plaster and stuff off the walls and getting down to the brick. We started Tuesday. My part ended Saturday. It was probably the hardest I've ever worked in my life, if I'm being completely honest. It was an endless stream of like 4-gallon pails full of concrete, throwing them out the windows, electric jackhammers, electric chipping hammers, knocking plaster off the wall, jackhammering them up the floor, shoveling debris all day long. It was hard, dirty, filthy work, but I've never met a more motivated and hardworking group of guys. More on them in a minute. I think the organization fed us very well from a little restaurant in town. All like traditional Ukrainian dishes and meals and stuff. It was absolutely fantastic. I'm not sure if I've never eaten so well. It felt like Christmas dinner about every single night, and like lunch at grandma's every single day. It was a ton of food. By the weekend, we had a traditional Ukrainian borscht cookout where they made it outside. They talked to us about the traditions and how they make borscht and all this stuff. And that was on Saturday. We had, I do not remember the name of it. I know it translates to just homemade, but basically it was Ukrainian moonshine, and holy cow, that stuff is strong. Then we spent our evening sitting around a fire. Vas, the resident angry Romanian volunteer, he is an absolute god on a campfire, and we sat outside drinking beer Saturday night and grilling food and pork and vegetables, and just had a really good time as a group. And then on Sunday, the chefs came back, and we got a chance to make our own vareniki, which is dumplings, and had a dumpling and kasha meal, which is like a porridge. Again, the food, absolutely fantastic. All very traditional, but just delicious in every way. And also, Petrykivka is known throughout Ukraine as a cultural art center. The entire town is done up with folk art and graffiti everywhere, but it's all beautifully done. And apparently it's very famous for this, and so they took us to an art class, I guess you'd say, but it was a building in town that was specifically where they do art in Petrykivka style Ukrainian art. And they taught us, and we all did it ourselves too, which is kind of funny. The lady did most of mine. She seemed pretty disgruntled with my work and kind of took the paintbrush from me. But anyway, it turned out really cool. I'm definitely going to be keeping it. I'm probably going to put it in a frame or something when I get home. But yeah, they taught us the Petrykivka art style and showed us around. There's javelin storage containers and shell casings and stuff in there that they have painted up. It was just a really nice lesson in Ukrainian culture and kind of meeting these older gals in there. It was a really cool time. Back to the volunteers themselves. I think I said it already, but I've never met a more motivated and hardworking group of guys. They're from all over the world, and I can try and name off all the places. We got a few of us from the U.S., the UK, you got Scotland, there's a Dutch cat, there was an Australian, a Swedish guy. Then, as I said, one of the guys that I got to be, a couple of the guys that I got to be really close with here, really good dudes, is our our angry Romanian with a heart of gold. He'll hate if I say that, but that's what he is, you know. And he was a really awesome dude, and I'm really glad I got to meet him. And then also David from Pennsylvania, very cool, very down to earth. Everybody honestly was phenomenal. Um, Timur, the Timur, the director of the organization. He's from Eastern Ukraine. He's very passionate about the work that he's doing and that we're doing. And then Elena, she come down for a couple days. She's kind of another one of the directors or coordinators of the organization. Got to talking with her. She kind of has a really interesting background too. She's a child of the Chernobyl area, and kind of explained how that impacted her childhood and how the state kind of looked after her for years, and doctors and whatnot. And you know, she's been to the States, and she's a very, very cool chick. All in all, it really was kind of the cherry on top of my visit here, and all of the things that I wanted to try and do, and to feel a sense of actually helping, and you know, meeting some of the kids and some of the people and stuff at the orphanage, and obviously the staff of the orphanage, and how grateful and wonderful they were, and a lot of the townspeople and how they reacted to us and treated us. It was all very good. Again, whole crew of nothing but foreign volunteers, all down there donating their time and energy to help, you know. Anyway, so yeah, by the time I upload this, I will have landed in Krakow and probably be sitting in my hotel resting after a, whatever it's going to be, 14, 16-hour train ride. I don't even know. Oh my god, this is going to be such a grind to get home. I'll spend the night in Krakow, and then, yeah, start my flights leapfrogging Europe to get home. I get to see the wife and kids soon. Really kind of missing home at this point, and missing them and everybody else that I usually talk to, but the time zone is completely fucked to where I really can't converse with anyone. But yeah, anyway, that's it for the update of the week, I think. When I get home, I'll probably sit down and do a little video kind of telling a handful of the stories, most of which good, maybe some kind of bad, that I wouldn't mind sharing as just events or happenings throughout my travels, and little tidbits there. But that, I think, is going to wait till I get home and I have a little bit of maybe a couple days to kind of reflect on my time. So, anyway, deuces.